Hey guys, Sneaky Snake here, brothers in arms, World of Warships, and today's video we're going to take a look at a pretty sweet game that I had in the Neptune, the Tier 9 British light cruiser. For this replay I'm divisioned up with my buddy Puddin and our friend from Ecom, Admiral 11, and they're playing in the Friedrich de Grosse and Fletcher respectively, the Tier 9 German battleship and American destroyer, and we're playing some Epicenter here on the map Tears of the Desert. So the Neptune here in World of Warships, what do you need to know about this thing? It's a ship that I've had for a long time, and it took me quite a bit of time to get used to it in-game, especially considering this thing has a massive citadel. But once I figured out how to position this ship properly, well, you can see by my statistics that I'm popping up on screen, I just finished the grind on this a few days ago and purchased the Minotaur. This was a ship that I immensely enjoyed and did very, very well in. And it was kind of like wine. The more that I played this thing, the better performances and the more consistent performances I was able to obtain. So what is it about the Neptune that makes this thing so darn deadly if you're able to play it properly and position accordingly? Well, it's the offensive firepower, both in terms of the main armament, the AA, and the torpedoes, that makes this ship such a terror on the high seas. For starters, with your main battery guns, the reload on the Edinburgh, which is the tier prior, is about 7.5 seconds. This thing's base reload is 5 seconds, and that can certainly dip well below that with Adrenaline Rush and main battery mod 3 on your ship. And these main battery guns are insanely deadly at dealing with destroyers. Of course, they only shoot armor-piercing shot, but they have very good penetration, and they bite into the armor as soon as they touch it. So you're going to get a lot of penetrations with these things rather than having a lot of ricochets or overpens. And these guns are very deadly. Being under sustained fire from a Neptune is something that hardly anybody wants to experience because they can put out a lot of damage really, really quickly. You have a pretty decent range as well at 16.5 kilometers, and while the shells do have a little bit on the low side for shell velocity at 768, getting into these kinds of ranges where you're 10 kilometers and under, and it's very, very easy to be able to hit the target that you are shooting at. And you can see here with main battery mod 3, my reload is 4.4 seconds, and it only gets better with the Minotaur. The other thing is the torpedo armament, and it is pretty awesome as well. You get 2 quadruple launchers on each side of the ship, so you can launch 8 torpedoes to port and starboard, and they are some of the best cruiser torpedoes tier for tier in the game. They have a speed of 62 knots, they have a range of 10 kilometers, and they're able to deal 16,700 damage on a maximum hit. And you also get a pretty good reload at 96 seconds. These torpedoes reload faster than a gearing for all intents and purposes, which is something that is pretty crazy. These torpedoes at point-blank range, assuming that you don't get deleted by the ship that you're trying to launch them at, are able to, well, delete a full health tier 9 battleship in one swipe, and you still have some torpedoes to spare because these things hit very, very nicely. And again, 8 on each broadside makes trying to rush this ship very, very deadly. Now you can see here, at least for the purposes of the gameplay, I've been shooting at that Pensacola quite a bit, and you can see here, right as he has to turn to the right, I am able to whale into this guy and get quite a few nice broadside salvos. Now the reason why I decided to bail out of my smoke screen a little early is you can see the enemy Missouri that I just circled moved into his radar range at about 9.5 kilometers. And the Missouri is one of the natural predators of British light cruisers because it's a battleship that can delete you in one salvo, and it has the radar to be able to spot you inside your smoke screens. You can also see off my stern a Benson was trying to approach my smoke screen, but I did have my hydroacoustic activated, so even if he did drop torpedoes, I would be able to spot him. And that's really the best way to play the Neptune. Get into an advanced position, pop your smoke, pop your hydroacoustic if you feel the need, and utilize your guns and torpedoes to deal a lot of damage. And you can see right there, only 2 shells hit me from the Missouri, and he did almost 9,000 points of damage. So this ship does not take hits very well at all. If you get caught on a full broadside, getting deleted from full health to nothing by a battleship, and even cruisers like the Hindenburg and the Zau, it's really not that uncommon of a thing to see by captains that unfortunately get caught out in those positions with this thing. And you can see, once again, I am just shooting shell after shell after shell downrange at whatever target is providing me the best broadside. And you're going to see here, at least against German battleships, shooting into the superstructure can deal a lot of damage really, really quickly. Now, other things about the ship. for the AA armament, you do have some very potent AA, specifically your long range. You have 114 millimeter, 45 RP, 41s, Mark 6s. You get 12 of them. They have a DPS of 106 stock before upgrading. And then, of course, your 152 millimeter guns also count as dual purpose, and they have a stock DPS of 86. So if you go with AFT and manual fire control, even though this thing doesn't have defensive fire, you have one of the best AA suites in the game, and you're going to see that when this Ranger decides to try and attack me and my destroyer buddy in a couple of minutes. However, the maneuverability does take a little bit of a hit from the Edinburgh. You're not as fast, you have a bigger turning circle, and your rudder shift is actually a bit on the slow side at 10.8 seconds stock. And probably the worst thing about this ship, and probably the thing that takes the most getting used to, is the concealment. It has a base surface detect of 13.1 kilometers, and when it's fully upgraded, it's only 10.1. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because the Edinburgh is able to get down to 9 kilometers, whereas the Minotaur at tier 10, the ship that you get after this, is able to get down below, I believe, to 8.7. So this ship's detection, well, at least amongst the sneaky cruisers in the game, is not really that impressive. And that's why it was a little difficult for me to get used to this ship, because losing 1,100 meters of concealment over the Edinburgh actually took about 10-15 games for me to truly get used to. It requires you to, you can still get in close with this thing, don't get me wrong. But when you're positioning, you want to smoke up just a little bit earlier. And if your gut is telling you, you know, man, I think you should smoke up right now, it's probably not a bad idea. Now, of course, you can be a filthy seal clubber and run the radar on this ship, but it's not nearly as effective because the radar does not outdistance your detection range, unlike something on the Minotaur. So, I know that's a bit of a meme thing to do, but hey, if you want to go for it, go for it. Just know that it's a lot harder to deal with. Now you can see here it's 505 to 347. The enemy team does have control of the very middle circle. However, there is quite a nice fight developing over here. And really at the moment, it's the Benson, my buddy in the Fletcher way out on the right side, myself and Puddin, and that is it, trying to hold back at least 6 enemy ships that are over here. Now you can see here this armor-piercing shot, because it penetrates so nicely against destroyers. Watch this salvo against the Mahan. He has 7,400 hit points, and in one blast, I chunk him down about 7,000, and then I managed to get the devastating strike, finishing that guy off with the main battery guns. I also do manage to utilize my Hydro in case he launches torpedoes, and now you're going to get a good idea here of the long-range AA potency. These two groups of dive bombers, granted this is a tier 7 carrier, but I digress. These two bombers are coming in trying to drop, and immediately I've already shot down 5 of the planes, and before the next group is even able to drop their torpedoes, their bombs on me, I managed to shoot down 5 more of the planes, and just in that really quick succession, I managed over 10 aircraft destroyed. And again, this thing does not have access to defensive fire, and it was able to shoot that stuff down really, really nicely. You also come with some 40mm Stag anti-aircraft guns as your medium-range defense, which push your AA DPS up to even more crazy levels. So that was really nice stuff. Now right here, this is something that, when your smoke is on cooldown, and you do have an over 2-minute wait before you're able to pop your next smoke screen, what you need to be able to do is utilize cover and concealment to your advantage, because, like I mentioned, this thing doesn't have the best concealment amongst the British light cruisers. What I'm going to do here, once all of those torpedo planes are taken care of as well, and I've pushed the number of planes shot down to 17, you can see I'm undetected, and I am moving back at an angle where I'm letting my smoke screen that I am currently not in be able to shield me from line of sight from the North Carolina. And that's actually really important, because the Neptune has a relatively decent range that it gets spotted at. It's about 7 kilometers as I pick up the Confederate when you're firing in the smokescreen. So if I was still in my smokescreen shooting at that guy, I would actually be getting detected at this moment. But it doesn't matter, and I got a lot of nice AP broadsides into him before my buddy Admiral was able to finish him off with torpedoes. And now I'm going to do the same thing here against this Missouri. I'm going to circle back around to the right and turn my front turrets to the right, and I'm going to put myself in a position where I'm going to be able to shoot at this guy without being detected. The smokescreen is still there for good measure, but also the island is well tall enough to be able to shield me every time that I pull the trigger. So that's really good stuff. And you can see the damage has already spiked up to 134,000, and we're not even 10 minutes into the game. You can just see here all of the wonderful penetrations on the side of that guy. That was over 7,000 damage. And again, these are only 152 millimeter guns. And when you have these just shooting over and over and over again at enemy BB broadsides or cruisers or destroyers, it does not matter what you're taking shots at. You're going to rack up insane damage totals really, really quickly. And it's something that, you know, is just so much nicer than the Edinburgh. And don't get me wrong, the Edinburgh is a very good, a very powerful tier 8 cruiser, but a Neptune played properly will just completely blow that thing out of the water and be able to do so much more than an Edinburgh could only dream of. And right here, as I go up to 156,000 points of damage, helping out my buddy in the Iowa who was getting rushed down by the Benson, got a few shots from the forward guns at that guy, and now, with all of the ships, enemy ships that is, taken care of except for the carrier, I'm now going to try to get on the caps right here and secure 3 for the team before the game ends. And that's where you can really rack up some very nice experience games here in this ship. Getting close to the caps, trying to cap them, you know, obviously you got to have your due diligence and be careful, because this thing can be gone, it can be deleted in the blink of an eye. But trying to get close to the caps and helping out your team is something that you need to do. And you saw for the majority of that game, my buddy Pun, myself, and then Amrad on the flank were just holding down that entire side, getting shots, getting torpedoes, getting whatever we could at the best broadsiding ship that was over there, and just taking care of business really nicely. So, yeah, very good stuff. I pick up 3 assisted base captures as we're able to secure all 3 of them, and then going for the very cheeky kill steal here. The shells are falling in. Let's take a look, and there we go. The kill steal for Sneaky Snake, and that ends the game here on Tears of the Desert. Alrighty guys, taking a look now at the post-battle results, and this was a very nice performance, again on Tears of the Desert. 160,000 total points of damage dealt to the enemy team. I sank 3 enemy ships, had 1 Citadel hit, I shot down 17 enemy planes, and you can see out of all of the shells fired, 252 penetrations and only 10 overpens. That is the power of these AP shells, just being able to bite into whatever you're shooting and still register some form of damage one way or another. I also got the devastating strike, of course, on the Mahan, and I picked up the Confederate by dealing lots of damage to all the enemy ships that were on the southeastern part of the map. Taking a look at the team score, I actually finished in 2nd place. Livnik in the Iowa. That was his very last game in that ship, if you saw in the chat right at the very beginning, and he managed to go off in style, getting enough experience for the Montana with a 4-kill Iowa game. However, both of us still managed well over 2,000 base experience. He had about 2,500 and I had about 2,200. So, you know, not the most monster Neptune game that I'm sure you guys have ever seen, but just a ship that I performed extremely consistently in. I don't even think I had a 200k game in this ship, but I was just able to perform at such a nice level throughout the duration of the time that I played this thing. So I'm very excited to get to the Minotaur, and hopefully I'll be able to get a nice game for you guys here in the coming weeks. So with that being said, this is the Sneaky Snake for Brothers in Arms World of Warships signing off. Guys and gals, please consider giving the video a like, commenting on it, sharing it with your friends, or subscribing to our YouTube channel. All of it is very much appreciated, and have a great day.